Keep in mind, my friends, Republicans control all three branches of government, including both chambers of Congress, but somehow, none of this is their fault.
The Democrats should know that they put the White House and the president in this position. And if they don't want further harm on their constituents back home, then they need to reopen the government. It's very simple.
Sometimes the most revealing moments in politics don't come from press briefings or official statements. They come when someone slows everything down just enough for people to actually see what's happening. That's exactly what unfolded when Stephen Colbert took what looked like a routine monologue and quietly turned it into something much sharper. He began with a point so simple it almost felt throwaway. Republicans control the White House, the Senate, and the House. Total control. And yet, the narrative being pushed suggested the consequences unfolding weren't theirs to own. That alone could have been a quick joke. But Colbert didn't rush. He let it sit. Because sometimes the silence after a statement does more work than the punchline itself. Then came the administration's response. A familiar structure. Democrats were to blame. They created the situation. And if they wanted relief for their constituents, the solution was straightforward. Reopen the government. Clean, direct, confident. But instead of arguing against it, Colbert did something more effective. He replayed it. He brought in Karoline Leavitt at the podium, composed, precise, moving quickly through explanations. She emphasized that comments had been misunderstood, that critics were twisting intent, that the focus had shifted away from what really mattered. On its own, it sounded convincing. But Colbert didn't leave it on its own. He placed her words directly beside statements from Donald Trump. Not interrupting, not exaggerating, just letting both play back to back. And that's where everything changed. The audience laughed at first. That's expected. But as the sequence continued, the laughter started to shift. It became more knowing, more deliberate, because it stopped feeling like isolated moments. It started feeling like a pattern. Each time something controversial surfaced, the response followed the same path. It was a joke. It was misinterpreted. It wasn't meant that way. And slowly, that repetition began to connect. Colbert didn't overstate it. He built toward it. Then he delivered the line that locked it all in. If every statement becomes a joke after backlash, then maybe the joke isn't the statement. It's the explanation that follows. The reaction was immediate, but what mattered more was why it landed. People weren't just laughing. They were recognizing something they'd seen before, now laid out clearly. Colbert kept going. He layered in policy messaging, showing how the same issue could be framed in completely different ways, depending on who was speaking. Healthcare became one example. One side describing restoration, the other describing burden. Same topic. Two realities. And standing in the middle of it was Leavitt. Colbert didn't frame her as the problem. He framed her as the position, the person tasked with taking shifting narratives and presenting them as consistent. That distinction changed the tone, because it made the situation feel less like a single misstep and more like an ongoing cycle. Then he brought everything together, clip after clip, statement, clarification, reframing, repeat. No theatrics, just structure. And once that structure became visible, it was hard to unsee. Even Colbert briefly broke the tension, asking viewers where they were watching from. A small moment that pulled the audience in, making them feel like part of the process rather than just observers. By the end of the segment, it wasn't just another late-night bit. It was something people could follow, something they could share. And that's exactly what happened. Clips spread quickly, not just because they were funny, but because they made the contradictions easy to understand. The side-by-side comparisons, the pacing, the repetition, it all stuck. For Donald Trump, that creates a different kind of challenge, because this isn't traditional criticism. Satire doesn't argue directly, it reframes the story. And once a narrative is reframed in a way people remember, every response to it risks reinforcing the same image. That's what made this moment stand out. It wasn't louder than everything else. It was clearer. Colbert didn't just tell a joke that night, he showed a pattern. And once people see the pattern, they start recognizing it everywhere.